with the different training courses available on my website. So the website is onlinefioritrainings.com. You can go there and download free interview questions on UI5. These interview questions are built over 3 years. And if you also going for any interview, please feel free to share your interview questions with me. I will be posting them on my website. So here you can see the different interview questions in the interview questions section, from where you can go ahead and start reading through them. So this can be a good start before you get into any interview to understand the kind of questions what people usually ask. Also, you can come to this blog post and look at all the job openings which are circulating around. In your company, if you have any job openings on SAP UI5 and Fiori, please share it with me. I will be posting them on my website. At the same time, you can also go and look at the different course offerings related to SAP UI5, Fiori and other courses. So I've recently started another course related to end-to-end application development in cloud, which includes Java-based OData service development and developing Fiori applications in SAP Web IDE. In order to complete this second course, the first course which we are currently working on is the prerequisite. So this is our current course, UI5 and Fiori with NetWeaver Gateway. So in order to go to the next level of cloud development using Web IDE, you should be able to understand the basics of SAP Fiori and UI5. And that's what the goal of this particular course is right now. Then you can also get a free blog access here. Just click on this. When you sign up for the training, what exactly are you going to get is something of this sort. This is just a blog access where you get complete detail of your batch along with the training content will be available. In this section, you can watch your training videos, whatever sessions we complete on daily basis or weekend basis, we will post the videos over here, and later point of time you can use it as a reference of your session. At the same time, you can download the study material which will be provided during the training along with the projects which we will build will be all available here for free download. In case you have any questions, you can always go to discussions tab and post your questions as a blog post in this particular section, and all the questions will be answered. So with this, let's get started with our course. Yes, those videos are also available for future. For about 8 months you will have an access to the videos. You can also go complete video based training where you can take only videos and start learning with your own pace. You don't need to come for the live classes on daily basis, because every live class is what we record and it becomes a video. And there's also ABAP interview questions, very good ABAP interview question and WebDean Pro interview question. And if you are interested in SAP WebDean Pro, you can download a complete reference book from here related to WebDean Pro. This is a 900 pages plus WebDean Pro book with proper screenshots, and every detail is well documented. You can learn WebDean Pro without any videos just by following screenshots. And free interview questions on ABAP also is posted here. So you can see here there are more interview questions purely on basics. If you're a fresher looking for a job in the market, you can also download this. These are all free available on the website, along with the different courses on like BRF Plus, Workflow, WebDean Pro, Floor Plan Manager, FPM we call it as, WebDean Pro ABAP, ABAP Objects, Object-Oriented ABAP. If you want to become an architect, you need to have a very good idea on OOPS concepts, like basics of OOPS, all the methodologies, and then going to the advanced OOPS level, you need to understand different concepts like design patterns. You might have heard about these design patterns in your project also if you are at a senior level developer like factory, singleton, facade, template. There are lots of different design patterns which are used to address the common software development problems. And the different standard frameworks are also built on top of these design patterns. So we discussed about MVC design pattern in our initial days of this course. MVC is also one of the design pattern to solve the problem which we face during a UI based development, right? So that's what a design pattern itself is. Okay. Yes, I have already posted the videos which we have covered so far in the blog. You can go and check them. Yeah. Great. So that's it about the training material and training and free interview questions as well as job openings. Please feel free to share your interview experiences with me so that it can become a part of this website as well. Everybody can look into it. Right. Let's get started now. In today's session, we will discuss.
Anubhav, this is Keshava.
Yeah, Keshava, tell me.
The thing is,
I can't hear you. So let me repeat the question. The question here is, how do I track? How do I track that you have made one change to the project and tomorrow you made another change to the project and now you are uploading the latest project? So I want to see the previous version of my project, which you have covered probably in class N-1. So what happens is every time I upload the material here on the blog, you will see there is this version gets created. You see version 28. Similarly, let's say I have worked on this project last time related to show you the Google Map integration demo. So you can see here there are 3 versions. So if you click on v.3, you can see all the 3 versions here. And you can also see the date on which I have uploaded this version. So do not go with the latest version. If you click on the main file, it download always latest version. Go inside the versions and then download the right version which you really want to look into it. So on 12th of December, in the class we have covered this particular topic. So this is the version you should download rather than the latest version. Hope it answers your question, Keshava. So here there is a version control already done for all the materials, including the PPT. So let's say yesterday whatever we covered, we have already did it in this PPT, and same PPT I'm daily enhancing and posting it. So what you can do is there are 28 versions. See, we have covered so many classes, so there are 28 versions in total. So yesterday's class, whatever we saw, you can download it from here, the last version, right? So version management is already in place. You can go to the right version based on your need and then download that particular file. You can see daily we are having a session, so daily the video is also coming and also the file is also available to you to download. Great. So today's session, I have got very good responses from YouTube as well, from so many of my followers, and they have told me, Anubhav, it will be a great idea if you can post a small video on Component.js. So that is the reason I will also be posting today's session on the YouTube, and you can watch it later on the YouTube itself. You can also download and keep it with you for lifetime, because this is the most important concept which has been introduced around a year back, and there's a lot of confusion about this concept in the community, and they really want a straightforward and a simplified way and to understand the Component.js. So let's try to understand what is Component.js in SAP Fiori application and why do we need it first of all, and what impact it has, especially when you design your Fiori application. So let's begin with Component.js. So what is Component.js? Okay, technically speaking, is just a JS file, just a JavaScript file. But what is the need of this file? Okay, everything, when there is a need, then only things are being introduced. So what happened when SAP Fiori and UI5 development started is everybody started the development on their own style. Okay, so some people used XML views, some people used JavaScript views, some people used to put initialization code of their views in the index HTML. Some people started putting their initialization of view code into the other views. So there was so much of decentralization of the code. People started putting different piece of code in different entities like views, controllers, index HTML. So there was no centralization. Also, it became a headache, a nightmare for UI5 developers to initialize the views. They have to write the code to create the view objects on their own. So the problems which we face typically is decentralization of code. So every developer use their own style, they use their own methodology and own objects in which they write their code. Okay, so it becomes so much of decentralized. One app, if you look at, people have initialized their views in index.html. Another app, if you look at, people have initialized their view in some other views controllers, right? So much of decentralization of code, which make every app difficult to understand when it comes to a developer. Okay, so this was one problem. Second problem which happened is lots of coding required to handle the object of views. So you got to develop the view object, you got to create the object of the view, and you have to write lots of code. You remember our sessions as well. In index.html, we used to write the code to initialize the views which we want to display, right? Then third problem is navigation. So you have created a view object, now you got to navigate to it. That is the third problem. And for that, you were using a container object app.to method to navigate to a certain view. That becomes the third problem. So all the navigation you have to write, code multiple places. There is no central place where you can go and check all the navigation. It's all written in different controllers. So this was also one big problem when it comes to the development of a Fiori app. Now, especially for the navigation itself, you do not have a dedicated target. You do not have a dedicated target. What do I mean by that? Whenever you do a design of a web application, what happens is every page of your app has to be for a good usability purpose as well as the navigation purpose, has to be marked with a special tag. We call it as tag. Okay, every page is marked with a tag. So if you go to a page, there is a dedicated tag to it. Then if you go to another page, there is another dedicated tag for it. So with that, what happens is the navigation to a certain application area becomes simple. So navigation to the app or the website becomes easier. First advantage. Second advantage is you can make use of browser back and forward button. Okay, this is the another power which you get when you go with the tag-based navigation. Let me show you an example. We will quickly go back to my website. You can see here when I am on my website, the website URL is www.onlinefioretrainings.com, and after that you see a slash this thing. This is interview question section. So you can see there is a tag name here, slash this. This is the tag name. It's a unique tag assigned to this particular page. Okay, which means if I want to tell my students where to find the interview question, I don't need to tell them first go to www.onlinefioretrainings.com and then click on this button here, click on that button there, and then you will reach to interview section to read the interview question. I don't need to do that because I have dedicated a tag to this page. If I give this whole URL to all of you, you all can click and try. It will directly navigate you to my interview question section. That's the beauty of it. It will directly take you. I have pinged it in the chat window. You all can click and it will directly take you to the interview questions section. You don't need to go to home page and do 100 clicks to reach to this page. Not required because I have dedicatedly assigned a tag name to every page of my website. That's the power of using tag name. Now, if I show you, let's copy this tag, this whole URL in the notepad. And now if I go to blog section, you will see again here the base URL remains same, but the remaining part, which is the tag part, again changed to slash blog, right? You see, remaining part changed to slash blog, which means this is the tag now for my blog page. So every page when I'm navigating, it's actually been assigned to the different tags. So if I go to FAQs, frequently asked questions, then it has again another tag. You can see FIRM. That's the tag name which is assigned to it. So every page on my website has been given a unique tag name through which the navigation for the end user becomes easy. Point one. Point two, if you remember, just now I navigated to three different tabs: interview questions, blog, offerings, and FAQ. So if you see there's the back button which is enabled automatically, because browser, every time you navigate to a new tag, browser keeps track of history of what tags user has navigated to. So basically it internally maintains a stack. What is a stack? First in, last out. That's what a stack is. Okay, last in, first out. So whatever last tag you visited, that will be popped up. The moment you click on back button, the last item which you have inserted in your stack will be popped out, and that tag will be used to display the content. So if I click on back button, you see it is going to offerings and download section, which is the super page, the landing page of my website. Again, if I press back button, it take me to the previous tag of it. Previous tag was blog. See, it took me to the blog. Now if I again click on back button, it takes me to interview question. See, so with this, the automatic navigation of back and forth button is possible by the browser. That's the second advantage of using tag based navigation. So you trying to understand that how important it is to provide a tag based navigation for your application, so that browser can keep track of history and end user can consume these back and forth button to navigate to the different areas, right? So that's the power of using tag based navigation. Great. So now what exactly we learned here, this is what also we need to achieve. Now one biggest disadvantage of current technologies which we use in SAP like WebDynpro, you cannot make use of the back and forth button of browser, right? Those who worked on WebDynpro, they all know this, that we cannot make use of this back and forth button of the browser as far as WebDynpro technology is concerned. Why? Because WebDynpro is not tag based. It has its own navigation within the frame. So that's why you can't make use of these buttons. You can't control them. You can't apply events to them, right? It's not possible. So we provide our own back buttons as far as WebDynpro screens are concerned. So this disadvantage is no more there with UI5. You can actually do that, and all of this you achieve the navigation concept and this dedicated tag name concept you achieve through a new concept called router. Okay, it's called router concept, and that's what we're going to learn also in subsequent sessions, that how to make use SAP router for navigation purpose and assigning a unique tag name for every page which you are probably want to navigate. We will see that in detail in our upcoming chapters. Router concept, this is also included as part of your Component.js. So there is a configuration which you have to maintain. It's again declarative, very easy, very straightforward. They have designed it very well actually, and it's very easy to understand this router concept so that the navigation becomes easier. And you also have a problem related to instantiation of view. Lot of code required to handle object of views, right? You have to create the object of the views. That is also solved with the concept of router. So three major problems related to the navigation, object creation, as well as browser back and forth button is solved with the concept of router, which we will look at. And that's also come integral part of your component.js file. Okay, so these are all some advantages making use of component.js. Now, these were the problems which we were facing, and then the SAP came up with component.js concept so that all of these problems can be solved. Then another problem, if you don't use component.js, you will definitely going to get into the problem. Why? Because SAP has told that if you want to integrate your Fiori application with SAP Fiori Launchpad, you must have a component.js as part of your project. This is very important statement, guys. If you do not have a component.js as far as your project is concerned, you cannot integrate your project with SAP Fiori Launchpad. You can try this out at home. You can go to Web IDE, create a very small project with index.html and probably one view and one controller and try to add it into the Fiori Launchpad. It will not work. It will not work. So that's a very important thing. If you do not have component.js, your app cannot be integrated with SAP Fiori Launchpad. So it's must that you have to have it. And that's why we call if your application has component.js file, it is known as fiori-like app. Okay, what is a fiori-like app? An application which has component.js as part of it, which also contain sap.m library uses and developed by Fiori guidelines. Whatever we saw the best practices in the previous chapters related to Fiori, if you all follow these things, then it's a Fiori-like app. Remember, this concept is very powerful. So what a component.js? In an interview, somebody asks you, what is component.js? So component.js is the implementation of UI component in Fiori, which wrap the complete functionality of our Fiori application. So there are lots of sections in this which wraps up the complete functionality of your application. So you dedicatedly going to just code the view and the logic of the view in the view and controller part. Remaining all things will be controlled by your component.js. Okay, will be controlled by your component.js, right? So that's what exactly a component.js is going to do, and it will overcome all the disadvantages which were there earlier, will be overcome by it. Now, what are all the different things which you will typically write in the component.js? Let me brief you quickly about the things which you will do using controller.js. What is the uses of component.js? What are all you will include in this? So you will include all the dependencies. So you are basically decoupling from index.html so that your application can be integrated directly with SAP Fiori Launchpad. Ideally, you should not have any code of creating views in index.html. You should not write anything in index.html, guys. That is purely for local testing. If you really want to become a Fiori-like app, do not write creating object of your views or any important logic related to your app in index.html. You should decouple index.html from your project. That's very important. Then only it can be integrated with SAP Fiori Launchpad, because SAP Fiori Launchpad is a shell, and this shell contains a component container. Okay, it contains a container, and in that container you can only fit your component. You can't fit anything else. So if you have your application with a component, then only the shell of Launchpad can display a component, can display your app. Otherwise it can't display your app. So dependencies is one important part. So one important part what you will typically do is all the dependencies, which includes external JS. If you remember, in yesterday's session, we talked about Google Map integration. So we saw we make use of Google API to integrate Google Map. So external JavaScript file, external CSS file, if at all you have, all these dependencies can be written as declarative way in component.js. You declare it. All the libraries and their versions are needs to be declared, like which are all the libraries you are using: SAP M, SAP UI Commons, SAP UI Layout. All the libraries and their respective versions which you are consuming needs to be also declared in component.js. Your application info like title, description, version, all these details about your application needs to be also placed in the app, in the component.js. So what does it mean? It means when you integrate this app with a Launchpad as a tile, when you want to bring a tile on the Launchpad for this application, what you exactly need is the tile title. What will be the title of the tile? This application is for what purpose? Purchase order requisition, purchase order approval. So that title, whatever title you will give to your app, that will become a title of your tile automatically. And description will also be displayed when somebody tries to look at the documentation of your app. Also, you can have version control. So let's say in the previous release of you had version 1.0, and when a new release comes, you increase the version point for 2.0. Right, that you can also control the version of your application using Component.js. Then comes is the UI5 framework version, which UI5 framework you are using. So UI5, as we already know, UI5 framework has different versions, 1.38, 1.40, 1.41, like that. So UI5, which UI5 framework is needed bare minimum to start this application? That detail you can mention here. All your models. So you saw that we were declaring all the JSON model, all the XML and resource model somewhere in one of the controller or do init of controller earlier. So which was making it so difficult, and then we were using sap.ui.core to make it available for entire application. We don't need to do that now anymore. We just have to declare what model you want, what will be the name of it. UI5 component.js, when it instantiates, it automatically creates the model objects, and it also makes the model object available globally with its name. Okay, so you don't have to do anything like setting the model using sap.ui.core set model. You don't need to do that anymore. Then comes the next part, which I just told you, navigation in the application, complete navigation of your application, of entire app, from one view to another view, in the master section, in the detail section, wherever you want. Everything will be controlled by router, and router configuration is also part of your component.js file. So configuration of the router, plus what are all the views which is going to be there, for what tag name, association of view with tag name. Like I told you, there is a unique tag name assigned to every screen. Similarly, when you go to a view, you will see a tag name assigned to every view, so that it helps you to navigate to that view directly. That's also done using router concept. So it's also part of your component.js. Then you have any kind of configuration which needs to be done for the same application. Configuration, all that can be done here. Any type of settings you want to specify, whether there has to be a validation which needs to be done or not, all that you specify in the component.js. Then any kind of initialization code, any kind of cleanup code at the end. Once you close the application, once user come out of application, you want to do some cleanups, all that can be done here. Any global methods which you want to consume anywhere else, you can define them over here. Okay, then also you maintain the details about OData service centrally. So you are typically going to consume an OData service to connect your application with backend. So all that detail you have to centrally specify in the component.js file. Okay, so that the system can instantiate the OData model and can talk to all the files. Then comes is the themes. So you have lots of supported themes. So what are all the themes supported by this application? You need to mention that. Supported devices, what are all the devices your application is going to support, any kind of local models if you want, all these can be declared in here. Okay, so this is all actually is contained, and then there's many more things, but these are all the majority of the things which you typically add to your component.js file. And once your application has a component.js file, it will be known as fiori-like app. Okay, Until you have component.js, it cannot be fiori-like. Also in the previous examples, we have seen in the past that every JavaScript file which we were creating were inside this folder, right? You can see in the previous example of Google Map integration, we saw that there was any JS file which you got to include. It has to be part of this subfolder inside web content, right? Here we have it. Why? Because in index.html we have specified the resource root as this folder, custom control demo. This folder name we have specified as the resource root in our index.html file. That's the reason the browser will always look forward for all the JavaScript resources inside that folder, right? This is the line which I was emphasizing in previous chapters. So here in this folder you have all your JS resources. This also we can break it down. We can change this, we can break this down, and now we can have an additional settings by which you can actually separate your files, your folders in different folders. So we will also see one more thing along with component.js. It's not an advantage of component.js, it's just the way you structure. So we will, along with this, we'll also see how to structure your app in different folders. That also we are going to see, because in real time, if you see, people do structure their entire web application, web app. We call it as web app folder. Your web content folder is actually known as web app folder in real time. And then how to structure your content in different sections as per your choice. That's also we are going to see. Now, some of the funda foxes, very important as far as your component.js is concerned. Let me write them quickly. Any application will only and only have one component.js. You cannot have more than one component.js. Remember, this is very important. It is just like component controller of your WebDyn Pro app. So you cannot have more than one component controller in a WebDyn Pro application. Similarly, in any Fiori application, you can only and only have one component.js. You cannot have more than one. The name of the file must be also C capital component.js. C has to be capital component.js. Remember, this is also very important. Your name of the file must be component.js, so that when you integrate with Fiori Launchpad always try to look forward for a file in your entire project folder with the name called component.js. Remember, this is important. So these two are very important things which you must remember when you are designing a component.js, or whenever you have a confusion, why did I name this file as component.js? Remember. Now, one more quick thing, all these things what you see here, they all can be given declaratively. So you basically declare them. You don't have to write any JavaScript code for that. They all is given with a predefined notions. Okay, with declaratively you can provide these details to your application, and this all can be clubbed in another JSON file. Okay, all these properties which you are giving declaratively can be clubbed together in another JSON file, and that JSON is known as manifest.json. Okay, manifest.json. So manifest.json is just a file which is again referenced in the component.js. It's part of component.js only. You add it inside component.js, but all these settings just to make your component relaxed. Okay, you maintain these settings in a JSON file, name it as manifest.json, put it along with the component.js, and just cut the code from component.js and move it to manifest.json. So that's what we will also see, how manifest.json will contain all this information and separate it from component.js, and then just reference the manifest.js JSON into the component file. So That is also we will see what is Manifest.json. It's just about separating all these details what we have declaratively in a JSON file, in a separate file called Manifest.json, and later we reference ultimately this into the component. So this file will supply data to Component.js to decide the Component.js what exactly it needs to do. So that is also one important concept which we need to look at. Remember, it's just a JSON file which contain all these details declaratively. Great. With this, let's also try to quickly understand how does your structure of the app will now change. So far, what did you have? You had a web content folder. Inside that, you had an index.html file. This index.html file was actually creating object of an app. Okay. It was creating object of an app. So this was an object of an sap.m.app, let's say. You were creating this object, and inside the app, you were actually adding object of a view, right? Inside the app, you were actually adding object of a view. So you were assigning, and that object you were again creating in the in your index.html. So you were creating two things here. One is app object to display the app, and when you were creating the view object which you want to add inside the app object. View object you were creating and adding that. Now this is how your earlier setup was, right? This is how your earlier setup was. Let me quickly show you. So we come to index.html, you're creating an app object here, you can see. You're creating also the view object in the index.html itself, and then you're adding the view inside the app and then placing the app into the body of HTML. This structure is now going to change. This structure we are going to change. Okay, we will not use this structure now. We will change it. So index HTML, what will be the purpose only? Its purpose will be just to drive or display you the component. Entire functionality goes with component.js. So how does this has to change is we will come back. So now your index HTML still remain for local testing purpose. So you still have index HTML, but this will not contain anything other than component container. You will just have component container. That's it you will have in index HTML. You are not going to create any view. You are not going to do anything else other than this in index HTML. You will just have a component container as far as your index HTML is concerned. Rest all things will be going with component.js. So you will now, this is a component container. Remember, it's a container. Container of what? Component. It's a container of component. Component container. So it can contain a component. Okay. So that's why we will create now a component object, and that component object we are going to assign to the to this component container. So this is your component object. .js, and this component.js contains two main ingredients. The first important thing which I told you is manifest.json, which it will have. It will have a manifest.json from where it derives all the data. It reads through all the data about what my app is all about. What are all the dependencies? What are all the views which I need to create an object for? All these things it will contain. And then component.js typically contains three sections: metadata, an init method, and then it also contains a destroy method. Okay, and it also contains a create content method. So these are all the three methods in one section. If you remember, it's similar to the custom control demo, which also contain these things. So these are all the three methods which are part of your component.js file, which it contains. In the create content method, you are going to create an object of a view. So basically your component.js is going to now contain object of a view. Okay. So you will have an object of a view, and this view we typically in a standard way we name it as app.view. It can be a JavaScript view or an XML view, whatever is your choice. Since we have taken the tough path, JavaScript view will create a JavaScript view. So your component.js will ultimately return an object of an app.view, which is in the create content method of the component.js. So that's what you're going to have, an app.js view. And this app.js view is going to have your app object or a split app object, whatever is your choice. If you are creating a split app application, it's going to have a split app object inside this. And then of course you all know in a split app you have a master page and you have a detail page. So that's what you're going to have in ultimately as far as your split app is concerned. So you're going to have a master page and a detail page in your split app. Okay, so will be our new setup as compared to the last setup which we saw. And then again, one more important fact here, you are not going to create these objects of your views. So here you used to put view 1 and view 2. These objects you used to create yourself, right? You are not going to create these objects of the views on your own. These objects of these views will be created automatically. Automatically your component.js will create them. And you are also not going to use this app object, split app object to navigate from one place to another place. That also is taken care by router which is they defined in the Manifest.json, which is referenced in component.js. So this will be our new setup now. So to begin with today, what I am just going to show you is loading two views in a split app which is inside an app view, which is inside a component.js, which is inside a component container that is inside an index.html. So this is the setup I'm going to show you. Little bit of important things which we will not see today is Manifest.json we will not see today because you need to have some idea about Manifest.json. So we will see it later. So this part we'll not see. Today as an exception, I will also show you how the objects of these views will be created automatically these using router. So that's we will see. Manifest.json is very simple concept. Once you understand how to build component.js, you just copy, you just cut some piece of code and put it in JSON file and separate it out. That's what Manifest will become, which we will see later, not today. But today we will see this end-to-end one flow of creating the object of the views automatically, adding them into the app view, adding app view into the component.js, and then ultimately this setup. Also we will structure our app differently. Okay, we will structure our app little differently now. We will not keep it the same way. Okay, so let's start with the new project, a fiori-like app. Now I'm going to build a fiori-like app, first fiori-like app. So all the knowledge which you have gained till date in our last 30 sessions, this is all will be used now together to build a Fiori app. Okay, let's get started. We will start with a pretty new project now, a brand new UI5 Fiori project, and we will name it like Fiori-like app because this time it's really like a Fiori-like app which contains a component.js. Let's begin with it. So hope you remember this picture in your mind. Anytime you want to go with it, you need to remember this picture always. Okay, you need to remember this picture. So let's start. Come to Eclipse, create a new project, and choose the project name as application project in UI5. Name it as Fiori-like app. Okay, you don't necessarily need to name it Fiori-like app, but just as the concept I'm showing you, I named it Fiori-like app. It's your choice, whatever name you want to give. I want to also create an initial view using SAP M library, and now here I mention the name of my app, name of my view as app view. I'm creating a JavaScript view, remember, say finish. Great. So system now creates a standard view, standard application for you, like putting most of its code into index.html. So if you come back, your code still remains with index.html. You can see here, it is creating the app object, it is creating the page object, everything it is doing here itself. We don't need this. We need to first tell the system now the resource folder is no more this folder. That is first thing which we need to do, because we want to group our objects now based on our need. So let's do that. So for that you have to come to the Bootstrap and you have to provide a new setting here. Okay, you have to provide a new setting here to tell the system that I am not going to place anything or everything now in this one single folder. I'm going to place this in different folder. So we have to provide a setting here to tell the system that no more we are going to put any resources in this folder. We are going to put our resources somewhere else, wherever we want. So it can be within the web content folder anywhere. Okay, how do you tell it? So let's look at on Google, again the UI5 SDK, to check the variation for Bootstrap. So we will come to this development toolkit, and there is a property called resource root. Okay, resource root property. Let me search resource root. Let's come here, structuring component. You can see this is the component.js documentation, also well maintained here. Component.js file, what exactly it contains. You can see this, how you can define it. But what I'm interested to know right now is the resource root. So let's search. What property do I need to mention? So we need to mention all our resources in resource root. You can see here resource root, and they are mentioning what is the namespace you need to give and what folder it will point to. Okay, what is the namespace and what is the point it needs to know. Okay, from where with respect to that all the resources will be specified. But actually I want to see this variation in index.html. So we need to go to index.html now, and we need to tell the index.html that my resource root is going to be something else. So here in the Bootstrap you got to mention that setting, and the setting name is data-sap-UI-resource roots. Okay, and now here you need to give a namespace. What is the namespace, guys? Namespace is nothing but just assigning a name to your central folder under which you are going to put all the files. Okay, it is just assigning the name to the central folder in which you are going to put all your files. So this becomes the central reference for all the files. This becomes the reference for all the files. So now you see right now I am inside which file? Currently I'm editing index.html file, right? See, I'm editing index.html file. What is the current directory of index.html file? Can anybody tell me which is the current directory of index.html file? Under which directory my index.html file is placed right now? Anybody? Which is the directory for my index.html? Anybody? What is the directory? It's the web content directory. You can see this is your file and it's placed inside web content directory. So currently my current working directory is web content file for index.html. So current working directory is represented using /. Okay, so you see here // is what I mentioned, that this is what I am pointing to, which means this web content folder, whenever you want to reference in your entire project, it will be represented by the namespace which I will provide here. So your web content folder, whenever you want to represent in your entire project, will be pointed by namespace. So you are just assigning a name, a unique name to your web content folder through which you can reference the web content folder in your whole application. Hope it is clear to all of you. So let's give a unique name. I give the name as Spider-Man. So now whenever I want to point web content folder in my project, whenever I want to write reference with respect to web content folder, the name which I will be using is Spider-Man, because I have told the index.html in whichever directory it is right now, that directory name will be named as Spider-Man now. So you don't need this statement anymore because you have already told your resource root here and its namespace. Okay, so let's remove this statement from here. Removed it, save it. Now anything or everything what you create has to be grouped under different folder. You no more have that restriction of keeping all the JS file in this folder anymore. You can create different folders. So let me create new folder, controllers. All the controllers I'm going to move in that. Let me create a new folder called views. All the views I'm going to move in that. Let me create a new folder for all the fragments. I'm going to move all the fragments in that. Let me put a new folder for utils. All the utilities I'm going to put in that. Let me create a new folder for my language file I18N. This is all we have learned in the past, right? Throughout our entire course, we are learning all these things one by one. I have taught you all these things. What is fragment? What is I18N? What is formatter? All the files I have already taught you guys. And we earlier used to put everything inside this, but now there's no more restriction because this has become your root directory, and this directory will be named as Spider-Man in your entire project. Let's move this controller from here to this. Let's move your view from here to this guy here. You don't need this folder also anymore. Delete this folder. We don't need this. See guys how beautiful we are structuring our application now. Hope it is clear to all of you what we are doing. Now, next step, there is a problem. There is a problem is that if you go inside the view or inside the controller, it is still pointing to the old folder. See here, the path of the controller and the view is still the old path. Is still the old folder path, guys. So can anybody tell me what will be the new path which I need to mention here to point to my controller now? So where is my controller with respect to web content folder? And then after that I have to come to this folder, and then after that I have to come to this guy here. So what will be the path? What is the name of web content? Anybody? What is the name of web content which I have assigned? Spider-Man, not web content, guys. It is Spider-Man. Just now I have assigned the namespace as Spider-Man, right? Point one, we reach to Spider-Man. Inside Spider-Man, I have a folder called controllers. So I will put dot controller. And inside there, I have a file called app controller. So this path will become now Spider-Man dot controller. Hope it is clear to everyone. Any confusion, please unmute your line and ask the question. So web content folder, we have already told that's known as Spider-Man in the whole project. Inside that there is a folder called controllers. Inside that we have a file app.js. So my new path now becomes spiderman.controllers.app. This is what it becomes with respect to web content folder. This is what helps the browser to identify where the file is placed. Where the file is placed. Similarly, in the view, if you come, can anybody tell me now the view path will become what? Let's see how many of you know this now. Let's test. How many of you can tell this? What will be the path of my view now? Anybody? What is the path of my view with respect to web content folder? Perfect answer. Everybody has got the right answer. Spider-Man is the root folder, which is web content folder. And then inside I have a views folder. Inside that I have the app file. Remember, it's case sensitive. View folder, view V is small, views, and it is S at the end. V is not capital. If you put V capital here, it is not going to work because JavaScript is case sensitive. Remember, this is very important line. We have also noted down this as our Fundafox in previous chapters. So now this is my view. Perfect. This is my view. So you can see spiderman.view.js, sorry, spiderman.views.app, that becomes the path. There's also a problem here. You see controller name, it's not correct. It's not correct here. We are going to reference a controller now with, in this file, spiderman.controllers.app. That is the exact right path now for my controller. Okay, let's come to index.html. And now here you see we are creating an app object, then we're creating a view object, and the view path is again incorrect here. Spiderman.views.app. That's it. This is first step to change your application structure with respect to new paths. If you run this, it will run beautifully as per the earlier data. So you see, this is app view. Let me change the title to show you. And I will run this just to show you how does it look. This is our first step, preparation step in order to bring in the component.js. This is our first foremost step, preparation step to bring our component.js as far as this path is concerned. So we have gotten into new path, and you see still it is loading, which means we have successfully changed the path. We were able to decouple with the standard folder which it has generated. This was one of the questions which was asked by one of you in chapter number 7. Anubhav, can we put our files in a separate folder? And the answer is given today. You can do that. You see, we grouped them properly now. This is how you build a real Fiori app. You got to put your resources in different folders. You can group them properly now. So we decoupled it from the standard folder now. This is point 1. Now let's begin with component.js. So I will right click here. Your file has to be always inside the root folder. This is your root folder now. This is your Spiderman folder. This is the central directory of your entire web application. It is also known as namespace. You remember I just told you this is called namespace. Your namespace is Spiderman now. So whenever you use Web IDE, you create an application, it asks you namespace. So namespace is nothing but the name of the root directory under which all the resources will be created. That's a simple list definition of namespace which I can give. The name of the root directory under which all the resources will be created is called namespace. In interview, if somebody asks you, that's what it means. Great. So let's create a component.js under the namespace. So new file. C has to be capital component.js. Press finish. You can see a new component.js is created. This is a new file which has been created, component.js. Now what I'm going to do is in this component.js file, I am going to write the code. I'm going to define this component.js. Okay, I'm going to define the component.js. In this component.js, we are going to add multiple areas. But first of all, you need to understand what is component.js. What is it technically? So technically speaking, component.js is nothing but it's an implementation of UI component file. Okay, it's an implementation of UI component. So SAP UI5 library has a standard thing called UI component. It's just an implementation of UI component. So component.js is nothing but it's an implementation of UI component. Now can anybody tell me which keyword in JavaScript do you use? Which keyword in JavaScript do you use to extend or to inherit from a base class? Anybody? To inherit from a base class, which keyword do you use in JavaScript? Anybody? We saw that in the custom control chapter also. Extend keyword. Perfect answer, Anu. Extend is the keyword. So I'm saying component.js is just an extension of standard UI component. Okay, so it's part of sap.ui.core library. In that you have something called UI component, and then you just extending it. Extend. That's it. So that's what exactly you define in your component.js. On top, you should also mention the resource path. You remember it's a separate JS file. So any separate JS file you're creating, you have to put jQuery .sap.declare and put the full path. Can anybody now tell me the path of this file? Anybody? What is the path of the file? Anybody? What is the path of the file? Let me draw the path. What is the path of the file? Perfect answer, but there is a small truty into it. The truty is C has to be capital. If you do these small mistakes, definitely it is not going to produce the right output, but you will learn from your mistake. That's why I say never copy paste the code, guys. Write every single line of code on your own. You will do mistakes, you will get to know the problems, and then in a maintenance system, when you are in a maintenance project, you never face difficulties. But if you're doing copy paste of code, that's not the right way of doing things. You are a learner, never do a copy paste. Remember my statement, never do a copy paste. Let's write Spiderman dot component. That becomes the path of your file. Same thing you got to write here. Now comes to the main section. So as I told you, a component contains four main sections: metadata, init, destroy, and create content, right? So simple. You're just creating an inheritance with the UI component class, which belongs to SAP UI core library, right? You give the path. Now you got to give metadata, you got to give init function, and you got to give destroy function, and you got to give create content function. Three major sections. So metadata, curly braces, leave it empty, init function, it's a function, you got to write a function. Then you have destroy function, and then you have to write create content. Great. These three methods you have written. Perfect. You understand the structure now? Pretty simple structure. Metadata, init function, destroy function, and create content function. Now, the create content function is responsible for creating your root view object. What is your root view here? Starting view for the application is app view. That is the starting point. So anything which you've written in index.html now supposed to move outside this. So all this code, what you've written there, supposed to move out of index.html. So I move this code, these three lines in my app view.js. Sorry, in my component.js. So here I moved that code, guys. See what I'm doing? I'm creating the app object now here in the create content method. I'm creating the view object also for as an exception right now. I have not used router right now to create the object of this. I'm just using the old technique to create the view object on my own, adding the view to the app and just return the app. That's what you need to do. This is what we are doing. We have decoupled the index.html completely. Now there's nothing, no dependency on index.html now. Your object creation is done purely in the component.js, guys. Don't ever do this in index.html. You are spoiling your project if you do that. When your application start from Launchpad, it always start with component.js. Your application tile does not know index.html. Never. It never knows index.html. Any application which you deploy in ERP, in gateway system, and you integrate with Launchpad as a tile, it never start with index.html. It always hit component.js directly, and it triggers this code. And if your code is still in index.html, it's not going to get executed. Remember. So now we moved this code here. It returns the app object. There's one small thing which we also need to do here in our component.js is we need to call the super class constructor. So we are implementing a class, UI component class as a child class. We just have to call the base class constructor to initialize the base class. So that can be done by calling the method, the parent class method, okay? Parent class method. And how do you call it as? you use this complete name, sap.ui.core.ui component, then you just put prototype.init apply this. That's it. This is what you are doing. You're calling the parent class, which is the standard UI component class. You're calling it parent class. So sap.ui core UI component prototype.init.apply this, which is you are calling the parent class. This is what you're implementing. You're just calling the parent class and telling to initialize it. That's it. All of this what is there in the parent class will automatically be initialized. Right now we just put 4 sections. In create content we've written the code to initialize the app object, view object, and returning the app object. And we are here creating the parent. We are telling the parent class to initialize. That's it. We are calling the constructor of the parent class. That's it we are doing. Save this. This is a very basic component JS, a very basic one which returns an object of an app. Now how do you display it? Let's come back to our PPT. We created this. 1 and 2, just 2 things we created right now. These 2 things, no split app till now. This app view itself has edit inside the app object. So right now this is inside the app object. So if I just want to draw this, currently how is our setup is this guy go back, this guy even go back, and this is your app. This is your app object. This is your app object. Sorry, yes, app object, and in this you have app.view. So your view is inside the app object. Right now this is the setup. Component.js is having an app having a view. You see here, this is an app object. App, inside the app you are adding the view, and this app you're returning out. Now we missed this part yet. Index.html now has to have a component container, and this component container should contain the component.js. So let's come back and do that. Come back to our index.html, and now here we remove this, and we just got to create a new object of component container, var o comp container new SAP UI core dot component container. That's what we are doing. We have created a component container object. Okay, we created a component container. This component container can contain a component now, right? That's what we did. We created a component container object. It can contain a component. Let's go back and check this documentation of this component container. Okay, maybe we come here and search for component container. Here it is. You see, component container, it can contain a component. Let's look at its properties. So it just have something called a name property, and then you have associations with component. So you have a name property. You got to give the name of the namespace in which it can find the component. That's all you need to do, I think. So let's do that. Just give the name. What is the name of the folder under which your component file is placed? Anybody? What is the name of the folder in which your component.js file is placed? Anybody? What is the name? Not web content. Spider-Man. Perfect answer. That's it you need to do. What it will do, this component container automatically goes and search this entire folder and checks for a file component.js. It finds it here. It creates its object and add it in the component. You just have to place this component container now inside the app, inside the body of HTML to display it. So place at and just pass the ID of your content. That's all you need to do. Save this. Let's come back and test now. We should get the same output we should get an app view being displayed, and voila, you see now it's displaying. For end user doesn't make difference, but we have changed the entire structure of our app. Let's look at F12. Let's look at the DOM, and the DOM will tell you what exactly is the structure of your app now. So you see, this is the content area. Inside the content, you have created a container. You see, it's a UI component container. You see, there's a component container. Inside the container, you have a component. Inside the component, you have a view. You have an app object. See, SAP M app object. Inside the app object, you have the view. You have your app view. You see, SAP UI view. It's a view inside it. And inside the JS view, you have a page. Inside the page, you have the title of the page. So this is the complexity which we have gotten into it. All is because of the advantages which we're going to get in the upcoming chapters. See, it's completely changed. If you look at it, it's completely changed. You have gotten into this structure from this structure. Your app structure is now proper. It's a fiori-like app. It can be integrated with Launchpad. If you go with the old way of doing it, it cannot be integrated. And any project which you develop in WebIDE, if at all you are using WebIDE in your company, any project which you create using WebIDE template, it follows the new structure here, what I just showed you. But the difference is we created it step by step without copy paste. We created it as step by step, brick by brick we are developing this. We are not writing or copy pasting objects. We did it step by step so that you understand the depth of the topic. Okay? Any questions before we close today's class? This is the most important part, guys. I didn't show you much of the things today. Very simple example I took just to show you the changes in the structure of our application. Any questions? We have a lot more to come in upcoming chapters. Lot more to come. We will discuss about router, Manifest.json, how to use these different methods, metadata section, the most powerful section, which describes almost every property we need for our application to run. That's what we're going to do in upcoming chapters. So that's it for the day. If no questions, let's close it here. Please practice this. Recording will be available soon for this. Till then, have a nice day and goodbye. See you tomorrow.